Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you. I don't know why we're having this issue everywhere else, but I do apologize. We'll get it sorted here in just a second. Hopefully. I'm making promises. I don't know if I'll be able to. Every time I say we'll get it sorted in a couple of minutes, I end up eating my words. Okay. We're back on the proper. We're on the proper network, so we shouldn't be having any problems there. We're back up here. We're back up here. No, that's not right. Okay, that's working. Tyson, hello, my friend. Cryptid is also having connection issues over his Twitch or just self. This was my fault. It looks like I'm having some. It looks like network issues. I was connected to the wrong Wi-Fi. We have two Wi-Fi routers. One is for the house, and one is for work. And the one for work is very fast. The one for the house is slower, but it reaches further, so it's got a broader range, but it's slower. The faster one is right next to both the magic boxes to make sure that they're always working. Joker, hello, good to see you, my son. Welcome in. So very glad you could join us. No, this time it was my fault. I didn't check the network before I connected, and we were on the wrong network. We should be all right. No, you didn't miss anything, Tyson. We ran ads, and then we had some technical difficulties. Hopefully, it's not going to make me run ads again. That would be terrible. It might actually make me run ads again. No, good. We're good. We got a whole hour. Doing good. Just hanging out, watching some TV. Excellent. You watching anything good? I haven't seen anything on TV in ages. I don't think I've watched TV in half a decade. Maybe more than that. Yeah, probably since like 2015 was the last time I watched like actual television. Oh, watching some live stuff. There you go. Again, I blame war. Can be any war in the past. Okay, so everybody over on the Twitch portal, can you see me? Can you hear me? Are we having any lag issues, anything like that? It's still showing me that it's unstable over here, but I'm not seeing any other issues other than that. We're on the right and proper network now, so we shouldn't have any overwhelming issues from this point on. But again, Bethany, hello. Well, it's all right. We started off with technical difficulties. Everybody's favorite part of Tavern Storytime. So you missed nothing or next to nothing. You should be quite all right. Georgia, hello. Good to see you. Welcome in. I got 2 bars and I'm on 5G. We're alive. Froze, the unfroze. Froze, then unfroze. I wouldn't trust mine. We're alive. All good on my end now. All right, we're gonna give it just a. Well, I'm not frozen. I was reading something. That's my fault. So we should be quite all right. Hopefully, anyways. I keep saying that things are going to be fixed, and then I actually can't guarantee that, because they sometimes just decide not to be fixed. And there's nothing I can do about it. Hello, 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 welcome in, everybody. Love that background. Yeah, the lady works these up. She uses stock assets and just kind of puts stuff together when we do story time. She's incredibly talented. All right, it looks like we have balanced out. It's going to be one of those nights. So I'm already a little laggy. All right, we're gonna wait. I'm gonna wait another 5 minutes or so to let everybody trickle back in. Hi, Castle. It's the first. Today is 1 month till my 21st birthday. Well, that is very exciting. Finally going to be old enough, because 21 is drinking age in the United States, yes? And Steve, it's good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. I'm just waiting to see if everything balances out. Because it does look like we're still having some drop issues for some reason. I'm not sure why or what happened. Okay, that says we're dropping frames, that says we're dropping frames, that says we're dropping frames. There's no reason why we should be dropping frames though, because everything is working. So I don't know if it's my internet or if it's a Twitch issue. Well, that's very exciting, Hannah. You'll have to make sure you come back either, or if we're doing Storytime on your birthday, have to make sure you come back on your birthday so we can do a song for you. Grim, hello, welcome in. Now, Grim, this isn't your first time in, but we haven't seen you in a bit. How have you been? I don't recall where... Because if I remember right, you followed back in January, maybe? January or December? You've been here for a while. Who's the youngest? That would be Hannah over on TikTok. Who is the youngest? Hannah is now younger than you, Erin. Yes. There we go, it's working now. Yeah, it seems like we're having a network issue. It might be OBS, it might be Twitch. But it seems like there is a bit of a lag issue. So we're gonna play it by ear tonight. It's being rather difficult at the moment. I've been worse. Well, it's always better to have been worse than to. I guess you could be better, but having been worse, that means you've also you're somewhere in the middle. Then hopefully you're not at the bottom end of been worse. Hopefully you're at the upper end of it. I will say I agree with my earlier statement about the war is causing it. War never changes. I'm not the baby anymore. Well, you and Hannah have been with us for about the same time, so I guess in all that time you weren't the baby. Bears, hello. No, we do not stream on Monday. No. We did we're doing story time today because I wasn't able to make it yesterday because I got stuck up in some errands, and I felt bad because we're trying to finish up all of book 7 this week, so we can finally get to the readathon. I've been promising you guys a readathon for months at this point, and I'm finally at the end of both the books we were on. So, all right, it looks like everything is balanced out for me on Twitch, so we should be fine there. Nobody says everything is working all right over on YouTube. Seems that everything is, yeah, we're pretty good there. We're doing pretty all right over on Facebook. It does seem a little bit laggy, like we're having a little bit of image lag. But otherwise, everything is looking all well and good on my end. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I've been good, Grim. I've been good. We're just working as per usual. The lady and I are constantly busy. I've said this before during Storytime, but our goal is to put out more than 400 Storytimes this year, with essentially equating to one short one per day and one long one per week or every other week. I would like to do it per week, but right now we're so backed up, it's hard to even work on it. Your birthday's on a Thursday, so they will definitely have to sing a song and say hello on your birthday. Thursday, a month from, I presume, this or Yeah, no, Thursday in a month from today. It'll be all good fun. Most exciting. Kayla, hello, welcome in. Alana, hello, good to see you. Good evening, Castle and friends. I hope everyone is having a good night. We were having some technical difficulties a minute ago, but they seem to have sorted themselves out. So we'll see. We'll see if that actually is what is happening, or if things are. I should have looked into your socials. I could be on YouTube. I open the portals on 5 different locations, so you can come in through Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Kick, or TikTok. The most stable place to be is Twitch, and that's where the most conversation happens. If you are on YouTube or Facebook, it tends to be a little bit behind. Something in their encoding makes it like anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds behind everybody else. So, I'm a Twitch baby. I'm about to buy a brand new bed. 2.5. That's a lot of money for a mattress. But as long as it's comfortable. It's a Casper Dream Max. That's quite an investment. Cindy, hello. Stephanie, hello. Good to see you both. Good, Joker. I'm glad. Well, it sounds like you had a good time. Hopefully, watching wrestling with family and friends. Also paid my taxes. I'm sorry to hear that, but we all got to do it. Jail. The only other option is jail. Which I suppose that's sort of how you get a return on your taxes, right? You go to jail and then everything is being paid for you. It's not a pleasant way to get a return on your taxes, though. Look at me being an adult. I'm a grown up now, and I'm gone. My weekend was really good. Had my friend over again, and we watched some movies and drank some beer. Sounds like a good way to go. Turns out you can sprain your Achilles tendon. Yes, you can, and it's very painful. So I had surgery on my. So I had surgery on my sinus, and I'm wearing a boot. Getting all mechanized out here, huh, Kayla? It's on and off freezing for me, and of course it's because it's the best part of the book, so of course it's going to be buggy for me. Well, I'm gonna wait until it balances out before I start, because I want to make sure that we're not going to be having it freak out on everyone in between. If it turns out that we don't get to do it tonight, then we don't get to do it tonight. Esteban, I switched from Facebook to YouTube because it was very laggy on Facebook. Yeah, it seems like this is a problem across everything, Esteban. It seems like everywhere except for TikTok is having lag issues. TikTok seems to be all right. Everybody over on TikTok says that it's running well, but it seems like everywhere else is having lag issues. So we're gonna hold out for a minute, but I'm showing dropped frames, which usually means it's an OBS issue. That's true. That's true, Matty. It's definitely the best way to get a return on your taxes is to harass your congressman every day until he gives in. I mean, that is your right as an American citizen. It is your right to legally and politely harass your representatives until they give you tax cuts. Remember, this whole country was founded on not wanting to pay unfair tax, so keep up that tradition. It's one of the reasons I've never moved back home, is because it's, in spite of how expensive it is to live in the United States, it's so much cheaper to live here than it is anywhere else. Where I'm trying to fix this lag issue. Give me just a second. I'm sorry, I'm just sitting here staring, guys. I'm trying to see if I can get this sorted. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Let's see if I can raise this up a little bit. Let's see if that helps. So let me change it, is it? No, I don't think it will. It was, yeah. It's one of those things. You can never give. One of the things that history should always teach us is that if you give someone power, they are rarely willing to give it up. Slowly sprinkles you in cake mix. Your cake now. So far this is my oops, it broke. Yeah. The cane has come in handy with the wrist brace, I would only imagine. If you give a mouse a cookie. I mean, if you get. So that's actually. The animal kingdom's actually a really interesting point on that. If you give a mouse a cookie, the mouse or any animal will return and continually try to get more. If you give animals food, if you feed animals food, they'll stop trying to hunt for themselves, and they will come and they will try and get it from you. To a point that if it's a predator animal like a bear or a gorilla or even something like a moose, if you feed them and then you stop feeding them and then you refuse to feed them, they'll murderize you. you get turned into a pile of meat by a moose. Yeah, and it seems like there are a bunch of other folk who are having issues too, Bethany. I've now had, because Grim said that Grim was having issues. Matty said that Cryptid was having issues, and I can see here that we are dropping frames. I don't know why. It doesn't tell me why. It just says that we're dropping frames. So yeah, I don't see what could be causing the problem. Yeah, especially never give power to a government, because governments are sort of faceless, right? And there's no real accountability to a government because it's just a thing. It's ethereal. It's like his helmet knows we are. It's like his internet knows we're a very important part of the book. It seems like it. It might just be Twitch. Twitch is trying to foil us. They're like, no, you'll never get your readathon. You shall never have your readathon again. It's trying to just spoil it for everybody. It's showing very stable for me at this moment. So it looks like we are stable. I don't know how long it's going to stay that way, but it's looking like we are stable. Bill, hello, welcome in. Good to see you. Grab a seat, settle in. We're experiencing technical difficulties at the moment. I don't know what the source of those technical difficulties is, but we're waiting it out to see exactly what the issue is. And in the meantime, we're having ourselves a little chat about not paying taxes. Which I'm not saying you shouldn't pay your taxes. Just want to be clear. Yeah, it seems to me that this might actually be an OBS issue and not a Twitch issue. Esther, hello, good evening. Elsie and I hope you're doing well. I was just wondering, were you planning to I am still planning to read on Tuesday, and we might not even get to read tonight. It's looking like the internet is being a little bit of a bastard for everybody. I think you underestimate deer. Yeah. But seriously, I think you'll underestimate deer crossing. Deers and moose and elk are. They're not. They may not be predators, but they are certainly not peaceful creatures. A moose, a deer, an elk, They are something else. And if you, yeah, like Kayla was saying, if you've ever seen what a full size deer will do to a car, it's hard to say that the car wins that interaction. Roderick, hello, my friend. Good to see you. Long time no see. The newest expansion for World of Warcraft went live today, and I tried to log in, and it's a lag fest. So I'm going to give it a few days before I start playing. That's for the best. I mean, I've stopped doing anything brand new. Like I used to get major FOMO back when, fear of missing out back when the lady and I were big gamers when we did a lot of gaming. And I used to love to go to movie premieres. I used to love to get the game first. Now in my old curmudgeonly old age, I'm more along the lines of, yeah, I'll wait a couple of weeks. Maybe I'll wait a couple of months. We'll see what happens. I am always more in the mind of just waiting until either I see like what the general reaction to it has been, or until I have the time and the leisure to do it. Seems to be working great on YouTube, but Facebook is rough. Okay, so yeah, see that tells me uh, that it's probably an encoding issue. Well, the only thing that counts in capitalism is money, so common misunderstanding. The only thing that counts in corporatism is money. Capitalism is an exchange of value. So it's a common thing in economics. Like a lot, the phrases get conflated because America is now a corporate state, and a lot of people use America as like the top of it. So as like the example of what capitalism is supposed to be. Capitalism is a form of economy in which value is freely exchanged. So it's the free exchange of goods and services for capital. That's all it is. You have a free exchange of goods and services in exchange for capital. That's all capitalism is. When you have things like corporatism, corporatism is essentially the same thing as an oligarchy, right? You have a select few unelected officials who have a lot of money who decide everything. And so what we have in America now, and for anybody who doesn't know, I've lived in America for the last 20 years. What we have in America now is this sort of unelected oligarchy in the form of corporatism, where corporations and politicians sort of collude with one another, and they decide everything. They decide the market, they decide the laws, they decide on all of the things, and then that is how the system works. Because in a society that is based around purely the exchange of goods and services, and with laws against monopolies, the government never would have been able to save the automotive industry when they were $300 billion in debt, but they did. Stephanie, hello. I thought you were in earlier, but I guess that was another Stephanie. But thank you for the heart me and welcome in. Yeah, the USA sort of fell out of its free market era in like the 1960s and 70s. Yeah, a lot of it was due to the fiat money and the central bank and whatnot. But overall, your sentiment is correct, Bethany. Is that right now we live in a system where money is all that matters and value does not. So I take your meaning. I only correct because this is a common misspeak in modern day. But your overall sentiment is absolutely correct. We live in a world culture now where the only thing that really matters is money, and the free exchange of ideas and goods and services is very restrictive, and we're due for a remake or a reboot. Cheat chest. I don't remember who or what I heard this from. Oh, I've seen people in hospitals getting antlers taken out of them. Yeah, no, again, going back to what you said, Kayla, deers and elk and moose are rough. Are rough. They will beat the heck out of you. I mean, I love America. I know a lot of Americans have their grievances with America. I've lived in 13 different countries. America's the best one I've ever lived in. I do understand why people have grievances with it. But there's nearly a better place to do like what I do. Like I couldn't do what I do anywhere else. And I love it. And I love like America has a very proud history. It's also got some shameful things in it, but every country in the world does. Americans get a lot more grief because they're usually sort of the central focus of everybody else. Well, and I would say that's true of everywhere, Stephanie. I've yet to live in a country where the government really cares about its people. And the best thing that a government can be is small. And that's just universally true all the way across the board. Government should have people should be managing themselves. Government should be just in general like protecting people. And that's what the US government was set up to do. The federal government was meant to do foreign trade and military to keep, other people from attacking America. And then every state was supposed to manage their own stuff, and every community was supposed to manage their own thing. And between the 1940s and the 1970s, there was a massive power grab. Like it started with the Great Depression and the market collapse, and then it just accelerated all up into the 1970s and 80s. And there's been a couple attempts to walk it back. Like Reagan tried to walk it back. He sold a bunch of, like the government had taken over the railroads. They'd taken over all of the oil. They'd taken over a bunch of things. And then Reagan tried to sell all that back to the people. He tried to sell a lot of it back to people. And they tried to assassinate him twice for it. It's just a heck of a thing. Esther, yes, internet is acting up. Castle in Australia, taxes are quite high. The fuel prices are skyrocketing. Expecting to increase by 50% by the end of the week. Everything is highly expensive in Australia. Yeah, and there's no real good reason for things to be as expensive as they are. With how much access we have to things. And part of the reason why things get so expensive is because we are so hard pressed into such like a world economy that no country really self-manufactures anything anymore, and it creates this issue where when you have a supply chain disruption, it ends up hurting everybody instead of just hurting that one country. And there needs to be a hybrid of the system, but you either have people who really, really want to be insular and it's just our country, we only take care of us, or you have the people who are like, no, everything needs to be global. It all needs to be global. Neither one of those things can really work in the way that the world is today. But that's a discussion for another time. We won't go too deep into economics. Yeah, digital currency is a terrible idea. It's a terrible idea. It's one of the worst ideas that's ever been presented. Is a digital currency controlled by a government. I always say no history will be, and it can't be. It can't be because like human beings are so incredibly imperfect. Like we could never be like you cannot expect any. The story time that I put out today, I got a bunch of people who got upset because I told a story about Genghis Khan. So many people were angry about that. Like I got so many messages, and I got a bunch of comments talking about how we shouldn't talk about Genghis Khan because he did X and X terrible things. And I was like, yeah, the man was a bastard. There's no getting around the fact that he was a bastard. There are huge, like something like 20% of living folk in northern China, in Mongolia, and in the southern parts of China. Something like 20 or 30% of people in China have his DNA. They're like, that should tell you a lot about how the man carried himself. But it's not my job as a storyteller to tell you what to think. It's not my job to go, he's a bad man, you shouldn't like him. I'll tell you his story. I will tell you what happened. I will tell you the thing that happened to the best that we understand it. I will tell you the story of a man who put his hand into fire, and then when he pulled it out, it was blistered and bleeding and in terrible pain. And then you can then decide whether or not you think fire is hot. It's not my job to tell you fire is hot, don't go anywhere near fire. Don't ever touch fire because fire is very hot. If I do that, then I make you weak and fragile, and you don't learn anything from the lessons of history. Yeah, well, again, that's true. If you just look at the way things are, and again, we don't really do a lot of talking about politics or social things because people can't really stay mature about them. But there's a lot of issue in the world right now where people just don't want to face reality. That's called shooting the messenger. Mr. Man, hello, welcome in. Good to see you. I love the con. These people do not want to hear about 40k. Castle, I missed your video on Facebook today. Didn't catch what it was about. Not always scrolling through Facebook. No, it's all right. I just put it out a couple of hours ago, so I didn't expect everyone. That's why I bring it up. But I had so many people who were upset that we talked about Genghis Khan. They're like, he's a bad man. You shouldn't talk about him. I'm like, look, if I stop talking about the things of history that are unsavory, the things of myth that are unsavory, the folklores and the theories and all the things, if I stop talking about all of those things, I have removed myself from 60 to 80% of all of the stories and lessons of history. And then what good did that do me? Those things are still the reality. That is our human history. That is the things that we have done. You can't look back with all of this shame and disgust upon the history of every single human being that has ever existed and think yourself morally superior when you are the benefactor of that long and terrible history. What we have to realize is that is our nature. That is how human beings have been for most of our lives, for most of our existence. And that how we live now is not the norm on a historical scale. I say it's definitely preferable, but we need to understand that it's not normal. It is not usual in the broad scale of history. And because of that, that understanding is important to maintain what we have built. Because we tend to be very, very critical of the now, but I don't know anybody of the now who would trade now for 1820s France. I don't think. Because 1820s France was full of plague and disease and terrible things. I'm supposed to be Belinda, yes. we were having a connection issue. Thank you, Bear. I appreciate you, brother. We're having a connection issue, so I got off on a bit of a waffle because we were talking about taxes. And we all know how evil taxes are. I'm not a fan of taxes. And I don't mind. Like, it's not to say the damnation to like the community collectively getting together and taking care of things. Taxes are rarely ever used for what the community desires for them to be used for, though. We can't pretend like taxes are something that the government always uses well. Just check it. Yeah, so we're going to be reading Harry Potter today, Harry Potter tomorrow, and on Thursday because we're trying to finish up the last 8 chapters this evening. People need to grow up. Knowledge is power. Absolutely. Not France, but America, I would. Oh, I don't know if I'd go back to 1820s America either. I don't know if I would trade now America for 1820s America. I don't know that I would. Nobody. I mean, what's been happening, guys? We're waiting to make sure that the connection is stable before I get reading. Is the connection stable for everyone? Because we need to run ads on Twitch again already. But is the connection stable for everyone so that I can get us up and running? Are we all right? Is everybody able to see? TikTok is fine. Thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate you. I would like to go to any time where swords were still in fashion as well. I want to be like the soldiers I read about and think I would have been suited for. I mean, like, I would go back. I don't want to make decisions for others. Good on YouTube. Okay, excellent. No, it looks like you're pushing us away. It's fine. Good here. Yeah, good. All right. So we might be able to start reading then. It's looking like it's working well for everybody. Beauty and Blasphemy, thank you so much. TikTok seems stable. Excellent. That is good news. All right. That means we can run these ads and then we can get started. Okay, so folk over on Twitch, we're going to run another 3 minutes and then we'll get into reading immediately after they are done. William, thank you for letting me know over on the Facebook portal. All right, 3 minutes and then we'll be back. I appreciate you all for sitting through them. If you have a Turbo or a subscription, they won't make you sit through it, but I appreciate those of you who do. Christy, hello, good to see you. You're making it in just in time. We've been having technical issues all the eve, and now we're finally getting better. Looking good here. Excellent. And Ace, hello. I don't know if I said hello, but hello. It looks like you're pushing us away. Fine. No, I'm not pushing anyone away. Teresa, hello. Welcome in. But yeah, I don't know that I would trade now for any. I mean, like, even with how tumultuous things have been over the last, like, 20, 30 years, I don't know that I would trade it. And we have so much knowledge, like just these things alone. Like, most folk don't use these to the full extent of their capabilities. This device having access to all of human knowledge and history. And yeah, obviously there are issues of biases and things like that. Like, I can store everything that was in the library at Alexandria 100 times over on this little tiny device. I don't know that I would trade that for anything. Because as Stephanie said over on TikTok, knowledge is power. Having access to knowledge and being willing to learn and use it is infinitely powerful. It's infinitely powerful. As a storyteller and descended from a long line of storytellers, uh, it's it's such a wonderful thing that I can tell stories to people all over the world, and I can have these conversations with all of you all over the world, and I can read books from Lithuania and from Ghana and from Ethiopia and from China and Korea. I can read books from all of these places, and I can read them in languages that I can't read. There's no other time in history I could have done that. I couldn't have even done that 20 years ago. So and maybe this is just me overly romanticizing technology, right? Because I love the uses that technology brings. The fact that I can tell a brand new story every day to hundreds of thousands of people, and you all come in here and you love it and you get to enjoy like being exposed to these cultures both that you have an attachment to, like some of you, a lot of you in here are Scandinavian or Germanic or Irish or Celtic descent, and you get to experience stories about your ancestors that you likewise might not have been able to hear or know in a way, because I tell stories in the old-fashioned way. I tell stories in a classical sense. So I tell stories like the 1800s, but I'm doing it in the 21st century in a medium that reaches so many more people than it ever would have before. I can do so many more of these, and like, can you imagine how long it would take me to perform story? Because we reach roughly like a million and a half of you every month. Can you imagine how long it would have taken me 150 years ago to tell a story to a million people? It's just such a miraculous thing to me. And again, maybe I get excited because I know there are so many of you who love stories and who enjoy these things the whimsy of it all is amazing, because this is magic to me. To me, this is definitely magic. And again, maybe I over romanticize it. Good on my end, excellent, looking good here. It's been for the last little while. Doesn't mean it'll stay that way. Well, if it ends up fumbling, we'll dial back, Bethany. But if it's holding up, we'll get going then. From what it looked like, the stream was a windshield and you were holding it up. Castle, having a mobile phone is like holding the world in your hands, unlocking endless knowledge and power. It really is. It really is. Uh, to be a merc these days, you gotta be some dude. I think the connectivity of humanity is great, but it has been detrimental. Spheres of influence were different. Yeah, and I do agree that the internet has had just as much as, if not more, negative effect. Like, there was a thing that just came out, a study that looked at something like 20,000 people, and saw that for the first time in history, so every new generation, so between baby boomers and Gen X and millennials and so on, or whatever the league is, every new generation had like a slight increase in IQ. Like, going all the way back to like the 1850s, every new generation had a slight increase in IQ. Kova, hello, long time no see, my friend. Good to see you, Huber. Every new generation had an increase in IQ. It would take a lifetime or more to tell a story to a million plus. Right, Bear, right. It's such a crazy thing to me. Leanne McCoy, thank you for the follow over on TikTok. You've marked us on your map. You should be able to find your way back. The next time you sing a story, we're glad to have you. I'm sorry you came in during one of my mad rants. I'm almost done, I swear. What was I? Oh my gosh, I lost myself. Or maybe when people were nomadic and did not have to protect what they own, Ukraine horse people. There is something kind of romantic about like the Mongol horse hordes and like the gypsies and stuff. Still, like the amount of hardship that those people. Oh, thank you, Kova. Yeah, every generation up to millennials, there has been an increase in IQ. Gen Z and Gen Alpha have been subsequent decreases in IQ. And a lot of it seems to be constant exposure to short form stories that are designed to give us boosts of dopamine and serotonin without the work required to pay it off. These are the first generations that haven't had to learn things because of the internet. First generations that haven't had to build skills because they can literally look up a YouTube video for the thing that they need. So it seems like that aspect of the internet has caused the general intelligence of people to decline, and that's frightening because we're only getting more and more prominent into it. We're not getting farther away from it. I actually miss the library. I'm Gen X, and I do not think some of these other generations gained IQ. No, you're okay. I've been listening to you. It's been nice to listen to you. I'm glad you're enjoying, Leon. And you're welcome. My son is Gen Z, and I homeschool for a reason, right? And that's what I mean is that these new generations have a challenge that none of us have ever had to face before, and that's that our brains are designed to learn from struggle. We are designed to thrive when we struggle for things. We're designed to thrive when we work for things. And this is the first generation where we're under enormous amounts of stress, but most of that stress comes from nothing. It comes from things that are sort of ethereal and ephemeral. They are not tangible. They are not quantifiable. They are conceptual, usually at best. And it's become a major detriment. And we can't adapt fast enough. Human beings are slow adapters. We adapt sort of quickly when it comes to social aspects. We adapt quickly there. But when it comes to things like this, we've never had to deal with anything like it before. So we're adapting far too slowly, and it's going to end up causing a major problem if we don't get out ahead of it. I'm sorry, I felt kind of behind. I'd say we've always been intelligent as we are, but we've been building on our own knowledge. Being able to write things down has been a great. Well, being able to write things down and then being able to communicate, right? Being able to talk about an experiment. And in the last 15 years, the last 20 to 15 years, that whole process has been on a decline amongst human beings. And it's sad. It's really sad. The internet is the new writing, I suppose. I wish that it were, because because once you write something on the internet, it's kind of there forever. It's really not the same, right? Like, if you wanted something out of a book 20, 30 years ago, you had to write it down yourself. You had to commit it to memory, and we don't have to do that anymore. And it's showing that really that it's becoming a detriment to our children. I'm technically Gen Z, but from the 2000s, so I'm pretty used to conventional schooling. By my peers, yeah, I can see it. Even with the skills I have, I still go to the internet for. See, but that's the difference, though, is that you've learned how to go and seek out information to verify and to build upon what you already know, Tyson. There are plenty of folks who are very intelligent who will go and they'll look for more details on the internet, right? I will go and verify information that I have in books. I'll go to a search bot, or I'll go to an online repository for these different books. But I still know the thing in my head. Like if I'm asked a general question about history, I have a general idea of that thing. But our children now, like Gen Z and Gen Alpha, they're not having to do that, and our brains are designed to do that. That's the big issue, is that our brains are designed to do that, but our brains are also designed to be lazy. So if your brain can get a quick dopamine hit or a quick serotonin hit, it'll take it. But that's also why this generation is so sad, because they have all of the dopamine and serotonin of having accomplished something without any of the work that has gone into it. Let's see what else. I'm a big believer in homeschooling and small community private education. Same, nobody. Well, handwriting is not even necessary. It's not, but we should still learn handwriting, because I like the idea that. Yeah, we are. We're gonna do the second movie today after we're done. After we're done reading Bear. And I say that because I have bad handwriting. My hometown was fairly small. The elementary school was a two-room schoolhouse built in 1889. It's 43 kids from K5. 35 kids in my class, 300 in the school. I still prefer to use pen and paper because I love the tactile feel of writing something, and that's just for me. Speaking of lower IQ, apparently the IQ of the average person in the United States is in the low double digits, and people be proud of that. I think that the average IQ in the United States right now is like 97. I could be wrong about that, but I think that the average IQ in the United States is 97. It was higher. It was higher 20 years ago, but it's gone down. We've lost the ability to research, is what I say. I don't think we've lost the ability to research. I think that we are losing the motivation to learn, because learning a thing is different. Well, what's scary, Stephanie, is that 97 is not even the lowest. I think that we're still in like the top 30 countries for IQ. There are some countries where the average IQ is 68, and that's terrifying. Because in 2020, there's no real reason why any of us should be in that low of a grade. 97 is terrifying for the United States, being how advanced we are. But the fact that it's going down everywhere is really terrifying. I think our teachers should. I think so. I think that it's much better overall when communities are involved in the raising of the community. Now, I don't think that means that the state should be responsible for raising children, because I think it's a bad idea. But when communities are involved with family and with the raising of family, you end up with a much healthier community. The funny thing is, I believe, if I remember correctly, I saw some stats on a bell curve showing we are moving to the more extremes. That is true. I've seen a couple of studies that say that. It's hard to tell because a lot of these studies have biases in them, so it's difficult to really suss it out. Like more really smart people, more really dumb people, less average people. Yeah. My handwriting is bad. My father's handwriting is the same too. It's generational for us. Yeah, and some people just don't ever learn to write well, but just being able to write is a skill that is being lost. Like, I saw a stat that in the UK and in the United States, something like 40 to 50% on average of children are graduating middle school and high school without being able to read and write above a second grade level or third grade level, something like that, and which is just terrifying. 97 is low, but it's not really low. Really low is when you drop below 90. Being in the 90s is at the low end of average. So average IQ is between 95 and 105. That's where you would want to be for an average IQ. Yeah, that's true, Kova. IQ can be a bit misleading. You want to use newer IQ tests that focus on problem solving and cognitive ability, because some of the older ones focused specifically on academic, and what's the word I'm looking for? Academic and spatial learning. So it's stuff that people who live in cities tend to be much better at because it's a part of their active processes. There are some newer ones that focus more on the overall of like cognitive ability, and those are a lot more accurate. Have you seen the first ones they came up with? Blind people would have failed the test immediately. That's true. That's true. uh, I'll be looking today. I have 3 leather belts to get started. And Bear, I thought you just told me that you failed. You fell. You shouldn't be working on anything. Why are you working on anything, mate? Yeah, there are a lot of really tragic things that have happened with the education. USA average IQ is 98 to 100. Comparison to Somali 68 to 72. Yeah, and there are a lot of like Eastern European countries and Middle Eastern countries where the IQ is really low, and it's usually due to I don't know if I can even say this online. It's truth, but I don't want to say anything because I don't want the platforms get touchy when you start talking about these statistic things. But there are a lot of countries where there's a lot of like familial marriages where people like marry their cousins. It was a big problem in England for a while and in Spain. I looked it up. It's 101.4, one of the recent reports, and 99 point. Okay, so that's better than the last one that I saw. So 99 is the average. So Americans are right in that average range then. I enjoy writing in cursive on pen and paper. That will never change. I agree with you completely there, Stephanie. I do like. I do prefer to write things down physically. Bethany said, I can do this, but you're supposed to be relaxing, my friends. They're trying to develop cultural neutral IQ tests. Yeah. The big issue comes with that when you give cognitive tests that are intended to go towards problem solving, because that's what essentially IQ is supposed to be like. How good are you at solving problems? And it's hard to test for that if you haven't learned essential methodologies like mathematics and things like that. Yeah, IQ is one of those things like love languages. Not, it's not quite as ephemeral as a love language. Love language is sort of ridiculous. Like there are people who feel more loved in certain instances, but there's not really a whole lot of science behind it. Yeah, we can get off of this. I've rambled on it for too long. The reason why we've lost motivation to learn is because we've been taught for generations that mistakes are bad things and mistakes are how people learn. And we are scared to make mistakes. Speaking as someone who has always paid attention to and worked in schools my whole life, yes, there is a lot of reward for doing good the first time, but there is not a lot of reward for improving or overcoming mistakes, and I think that that's a major oversight on the way that we teach in a general sense. Writing with a pen physically hurts my hand, but it's my preference on writing. Is weird. Well, and I get it. Like that tactile feeling of writing something is such a human thing. I love to write things down. I have terrible handwriting. I used to have very good handwriting, but my hands. I have nerve issues now, so my hands shake a lot when I write, and my hands, everything is all shaky. But there's not a clear line of working towards succeeding. Just like, yeah, I do want to get into it though, because I still want you guys to be able to watch the movie tonight before we go to bed. So, IQ is like an internet quilt. You want to hold it, but it's all digital, not physical. The reason we have. Oh, okay. I did read that. I did read that. Learn more from failure than success. Don't really know how to do a thing until you know how to fix a thing after you've broken it. Yeah, and I do think that it's possible to learn from other people's failures, which is supposed to be the point of education, right? The education is supposed to be like, here are failures, here are successes, and this is what I said earlier about the video that I put out today is that if I tell you what to think, you learn nothing. If I teach you how to think by picking up context, by being able to abstract. That's the other thing that apparently these generations are not able to do. The Gen Z and Gen Alpha can't abstract, which is dreadful, because the ability to abstract is the superpower of human beings. It's such a terrifying thing to think that human beings are losing the ability to abstract. I'm still here. Okay, Hannah, I'm gonna start reading, I promise. I get very passionate about this subject because, and again, it came up because of the whole thing with the Genghis Khan video. IQ can be misleading, but I do think we are purposely being dumbed down. IQ can be misleading, but I think that IQ and these other like personality tests, you have to take them the way that you should take everything in history, and that you have to take them with context, right? Like you have to. If I take and I sit a child down who's never been able to read, who's never been taught to read, never been taught to write, never read a math book, never been taught any sort of mathematics. If I sit them down and have them take an IQ test, they're gonna fail, right? Because they have no frame or context for the information in the test. That doesn't mean that that child is dumb. The context there is important. But you can take the level that someone has been, like if somebody has completed 4 years of university and you give them an IQ test and they scored an 80, there's something wrong there, right? Like a person who has gone through 4 or 10 years of university should be able to score at least average on an IQ test, you would assume. And that's why the context of these things is important, and they provide very necessary and important information that can be used. And everything in academia has to be looked at that way. Even if there's a study that says this is absolutely 100% true, we've proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt, you can assume it's about 60% true. On a high end, it's about 60%. Susan, thank you for the heart, me. I appreciate you. And Leanne, thank you for the heart, me. I didn't see that come in. I was rambling. Thank you so much. Tips to the Tavern Keeper are deeply appreciated. Thank you very much. I will say a low ASVAB score really speaks volumes every time. This is true. And Frost, hello, my friend. Good to see you, brother. Oh, don't get me started on critical and abstract thinking. We'll be here all night. I need to get into reading. Critical thinking has more or less been beaten out of us, and it's terrifying for me because I see things like when I started seeing people in power and in like media and very important people start saying, don't think for yourself, just listen to what we're saying and trust experts. That is a horrifying thing to hear in a society and in cultures that were built on free thinking. You should always be encouraged. Like, if a teacher ever tells you, it's funny, I have a story time coming out about this. There is a saying in Proverbs that says, oh gosh, hang on, I'm gonna bring it up because I don't want to butcher it. Hang on, and then I promise immediately after this we're gonna get into story time. I promise you. It's funny that this came up. It's almost like I planned it. Here we go. What is it? Yeah, in the book of Proverbs, there is a saying that says, the one who states his case first seems right until the other comes along and examines him. You're right, Bear. You're right. All right. This is the last point, and then we'll get into it. Yeah. The point being that if you have somebody who is being very loud and saying, don't take any other opinion but mine, don't take any other perspective but mine, don't verify what I've said. That is yeah. Also, people learn in different ways. Okay, now I will shut up because I can't read the book. So we can read. Yeah, all right. Cindy, thank you. I appreciate you. 3,000 likes already. I see. I thought so. Thank you for confirming. I want to say I saw somewhere that we retain information better when reading versus listening. That's true, writing. Well, and the reason why that is because humans are... Otsdava, hello and welcome in. I'm sorry I didn't see you drop in. Welcome in, my friend. So very glad you could join. I'm about to start reading here in a second. Well, and we just had a raid in. Rebecca M. Suave, hello and welcome in. Steve and stuff, hello. Steve, you've come from somewhere else before. Hello and welcome in, friend. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome. Yay, reading. Oh, yes, from Arthur Christie. Well, hello, welcome in. What were you all doing this fine evening? Get your Viking raspberries in for the night. I knew I recognized your names. I'm glad that you've come in. And Artsdava, hello, welcome in. I'm so very glad you could all join us. We are about to start the Battle of Hogwarts, and it's going to be a hell of a thing. All right, cowboy. I'll see you later, my friend. Committing to attending the gym every day this month. Best of luck. Get in there. I expect to see a ripped hooper by the end of the month. Always lovely to see you, my friend. Always lovely to see you. Ashley, hello. Good to see you. I hope you and Mateus are doing all right. How is Matthew feeling? But yeah, that proverb is one of my favorite sayings because it is notes that if anyone ever discourages you from learning, that person is trying to hide something. So, all right, that's where we're going to stop on that subject for the evening. I have waffled long enough. Let's go ahead and get in. We've got 20 pages in this chapter of Harry Potter. We need to get trucking, my friends. Writing my new adult race car driver romance, I sent the romantasy to editor. Wow, that I don't think I've ever heard of an adult race car driver romance. You might be one of the first on the market with that. I have to ask, how did you come up with because that is interesting. Because like race car driving is very dramatic, right? Like there's a lot of like culture around race car driving. There's a lot of so how did you come up with that particular concept? Yeah, right. Like it's a fact because like I'm not much of a romantic reader. I don't read a whole lot of romance, but thanks, friends. We got out of the hospital after being in for 4 days. Then he went back into the hospital for 2 more days because of septic. Oh my goodness! Tell them if they don't take care of our boy, we're gonna come down and smack him around a bit. No, Stephanie, her lovely, lovely man has not been well. He's been in and out of the hospital for the last couple of weeks. I am a pit crew member for a dirt racing track. That's very interesting. I actually have a friend who's a pin-up model who she used to do drag racing. So that's very interesting. And those boys, she just had a baby. Her and her husband just had a baby. It's adorable. Those boys in their flame suits are cute. Sorry, my partner of 50 years. Oh, I see. High stakes and a lot of good metaphor material. Yeah, for sure. Time for some Earl Grey tree. Roderick, I'm glad you stuck with us. Save Titan, can I believe in the current or my own version of Norse paganism tradition and that be fine? So, I get this question a lot, Titan, and you are allowed, you're an adult, you're allowed to believe whatever you want. Now, the big thing about belief is that belief is very individual. You will very rarely find universal belief. Even amongst Christians who have a very stringent book that tells them exactly what to believe, there's a whole lot of disagreement on what they actually believe. That's why you have so many sects of Christianity. You are allowed to believe whatever you like. The only thing that I would warn against is that if you do believe a thing and you have a personal belief system, don't profess it as being universal. That's a thing you have to be careful of. Is that we know very little about the cultural and religious practices of our ancestors, and you'll get a lot of people who will claim, oh, this is truth, this is what happened, believe what I believe because it is true, when it's not really based on any sort of historicity. So you are allowed to believe whatever you want to believe. Just make sure that you are being careful and respectful of the things that you are co-opting into what you believe. So I know quite a few people who are what they call eclectic pagans, right? Where they will believe in like Greek and Roman and Norse and Celtic, and they'll take in all of these things as a part of their belief system. That's fine, just don't mark it as being something that is historically founded in any way. Because it will start to confuse other people who are trying to learn things when you get a bunch of people who are claiming these widely varied sets of beliefs that aren't based on anything. So yes, you are allowed to believe whatever you want. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. You can take whatever traditions you want and adapt them into your own thing. Olive, hello and welcome in. Long live the USA. I agree. Not reading it. I know, I'm sorry, Bethany. We're getting there. Yep. Thank you for the love you so much and the heart me. Thank you much. I appreciate you. Okay. let's go ahead and get into story time, my friends. I apologize for the long wait this evening. And yeah, give Mateus a big old smooch from all of us, Ashley. All right, here we go. Chapter 31 of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. The Battle of Hogwarts. The enchanted ceiling of the Great Hall was dark and scattered with stars, and below it the 4 long house tables were lined with disheveled students. In some travelling cloaks, others in dressing gowns. Here and there shone the pearly white figures of school ghosts. Every eye, living and dead, was fixed upon Professor McGonagall, who was speaking from the raised platform at the top of the hall. Behind her stood the remaining teachers, including the Palmino Centaur Firenze, and the members of the Order of the Phoenix who had arrived to fight.
Evacuation will be overseen by Mr. Filch, by Madame Pomfrey, prefects. When I give the word, you will organize your house and take your charges in an orderly fashion to the evacuation point.
Many of the students looked petrified. However, as Harry skirted the walls, scanning the Gryffindor table for Ron and Hermione, Ernie Macmillan stood up at the Hufflepuff table and shouted,
"And if I want to stay and fight?"
There was a smattering of applause.
"If you are of age, then you may stay,"
said Professor McGonagall.
"And what about our things?"
called a girl from the Ravenclaw table.
"Our trunks, our owls." "We have no time to collect positions,"
said Professor McGonagall.
"The important thing is we get you out of here safely." "Where's Professor Snape?"
shouted a girl from the Slytherin table.
"He has, to use a common phrase, done a bunk,"
replied Professor McGonagall, and a great cheer erupted from the Gryffindors, Hufflepuffs, and Ravenclaws. Harry moved up the hall alongside the Gryffindor table, still looking for Ron and Hermione. As he passed, faces turned in his direction, and a great deal of whispering broke out in his wake.
"We've already placed protections around the castle,"
Professor McGonagall was saying,
"but it's unlikely to hold for very long unless we reinforce it. And I must ask you, therefore, to move quickly and calmly and do as your prefects."
But her final words were drowned as a different voice echoed throughout the hall. It was high and clear, and there was no telling from where it was coming. It seemed to issue from the walls themselves, like the monster it had once commanded. It might have lain dormant there for centuries.
"I know you are preparing to fight."
There were screams amongst the students, some of whom clutched each other, looking around in terror for the source of the sound.
"Your efforts are futile. You cannot fight me. I do not want to kill you. I have great respect for the teachers of Hogwarts. I do not want to spill magical blood."
There was silence in the hall, now, the kind of silence that presses against the eardrums. That seems too huge to be contained by the walls.
"You have until midnight."
The silence swallowed them all again. Every head turned, every eye in the place seemed to have found Harry, to hold him frozen in the glare of thousands of invisible beams. Then a figure rose from the Slytherin table, and he recognized this to be Pansy Parkinson. As she raised a shaking arm and screamed,
"But he's here! He's there! Potter's there! Someone grab him!"
Before Harry could speak, there was a massive movement. The Gryffindors in front of him had risen and stood facing. Not Harry, but the Slytherins. Then the Hufflepuffs stood, and almost at the same moment the Ravenclaws. All of them with their backs to Harry, and all of them looking towards Pansy instead. And Harry, awestruck and overwhelmed, saw wands emerging from everywhere, pulled from beneath cloaks and under sleeves.
"Thank you, Miss Parkinson,"
said Professor McGonagall in a clipped voice.
You'll leave the hall first with Mr. Filch. If the rest of your house could follow.
Harry heard the grinding of benches and then the sound of Slytherins trooping out on the other side of the hall.
Ravenclaws, follow on,
cried Professor McGonagall. Slowly the 4 tables emptied. The Slytherin table was completely deserted, but a number of older Ravenclaws remained seated, while their fellows filed out. Even more Hufflepuffs stayed behind, and half the Gryffindor table remained seated, necessitating McGonagall's descent from the teacher's platform to chivvy the underaged on their way.
Absolutely not, Creevy. Go! And you too, Pix.
Harry hurried over to the Weasleys, all sitting together at the Gryffindor table. Where are Ron and Hermione? Haven't you found? Began Mr. Weasley, looking worried. But he broke off as Kingsley had stepped forward to the raised platform to address those who had remained. It's very late. I'll sleep all morning now. Thank you very much. I really appreciate how you explained it for me. Of course, Titan, of course. And I hope you'll enjoy Storytime with us. I appreciate you for joining. Do you think Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows portrays America? I don't. I think it portrays a magical version of England. Because that's what it says. I try not to read anything more into it than that. I'm feeling fat after all those waffles. To be expected. To be expected. Alright, where was I? We only have... oh wait, this is Kingsley. We only have half an hour until midnight. We go fast. We need to act fast. A battle plan has been agreed between the teachers of Hogwarts and the Order of the Phoenix. Professor Flitwick, Sprout, and McGonagall are going to take groups of fighters up 3 of the highest towers, Ravenclaw, Astronomy, and Gryffindor, where they'll have good overview, excellent positions from which to work spells. Meanwhile, Remus, he indicated Lupin, Arthur, he pointed toward Mr. Weasley, sitting at the Gryffindor table, and I will take him to the grounds. We will need somebody to organize defense of the entrances and passageways into the school.
Sounds like a job for us,
called Fred, indicating himself and George, and Kingsley nodded his approval. All right, lead us up here, and we'll divide up the troops.
Potter,
said Professor McGonagall, hurrying up to him as students flooded the platform, jostling for position, receiving instructions.
Aren't you supposed to be looking for something?
What? Oh, said Harry. Oh, yeah. He'd almost forgotten about the Horcrux, almost forgotten what the battle was being fought so that he could search for it. The inexplicable absence of Ron and Hermione had momentarily driven every other thought from his mind.
Then go, Potter, go!
Yeah, right. He sensed eyes following him as he ran out of the great hall again, into the entrance hall still crowded with evacuating students. He allowed himself to be swept up the marble staircase with them, but at the top he hurried off along a deserted corridor. Fear and panic were clouding his thought process. He tried to calm himself, to concentrate in finding the Horcrux, but his thoughts buzzed as frantically and as fruitlessly as wasps trapped beneath a glass. Without Ron and Hermione to help him, he could not seem to marshal his ideas. He slowed down, coming to a halt halfway along the empty passage, where he sat upon the plinth of a departed statue and pulled the Marauder's map out of his pouch around his neck. He could not see Ron or Hermione's names anywhere on it, though the density of the crowd of dots was making its way to the room of requirement. Might, he thought, be concealing them. He put the map away and pressed his hands over his face and closed his eyes, trying to concentrate. Voldemort thought I'd go to Ravenclaw Tower. There it was, a solid fact, a place to start. Voldemort had sanctioned Electo Caro in the Ravenclaw common room. And there could only be one explanation. Voldemort feared that Harry already knew his Horcrux was connected to that house. But the only object anyone seemed to associate with Ravenclaw was the lost diadem. And how could the Horcrux be the diadem? How was it possible that Voldemort, the Slytherin, had found the diadem that had eluded generations of Ravenclaws? Who could have told him where to look when nobody had seen the diadem in living memory? Back to YouTube while I take a smoke. Crystal, hello, good to see you. Where are we? In living memory. Beneath his fingers, Harry's eyes flew open again. He leapt up from the plinth and tore back the way he had come, now in pursuit of his one last hope. The sound of hundreds of people marching towards the room of requirement grew louder and louder as he returned to the marble stairs. Prefects were shouting instructions, trying to keep track of their students in their houses. There was much pushing and shoving. Harry saw Zachariah Smith bowling over first years to get to the front of the queue. Here and there, younger students were in tears, while older ones called desperately for their friends or siblings. Matthew told me that to tell you his smooches are the only thing that heals him now. Well, I am glad that he's in good spirits. Yep, thank you for the dolphin as well. Tips of the tavern keeper are always appreciated. Thank you kindly. Harry caught sight of a pearly white figure drifting across the entrance hall below and yelled as loudly as he could over the clamour. Nick! Nick! I need to talk to you! He forced his way back through the tide of students and finally reaching the bottom of the stairs where nearly headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor Tower, stood waiting for him. Harry, my dear boy! Nick made to grasp Harry's hand with both of his own, and Harry's felt as though they had been thrust into icy water. Nick, you've got to help me. Who's the ghost of Ravenclaw Tower? Nearly headless Nick looked surprised and a little offended. The Great Lady, of course. But if it is ghostly service you require, it's got to be her. Do you know where she is? Well, let's see. Nick's head wobbled a little on his ruff, and he turned hither and thither, peering over the heads of the swarming students. That's her, over there, Harry, the young woman with the long hair. Harry looked in the direction of Nick's transparent pointing finger and saw a tall ghost, who caught sight of Harry looking at her, raised her eyebrows and drifted away through a solid wall. Harry ran after her. Once through the door of the corridor into which she had disappeared, he saw her at the very end of the passageway, still gliding smoothly along from him. Hey, wait, come back! She consented to pause, floating a few inches from the ground, and Harry supposed that she was beautiful, with her waist-length hair and floor-length cloak. But she also looked haughty and proud. Close to, he recognized her as a ghost he had passed several times in the corridor, but whom he had never spoken. You're the Grey Lady. She nodded, but did not speak. The ghost of Ravenclaw Tower. That is correct. Her tone was not encouraging. Please, I need some help. I need to know anything you can tell me about the lost diadem. A cold smile curved her lips. I am afraid, she said, turning to leave, that I cannot help you. Wait! He had not meant to shout, but anger and panic were threatening to overwhelm him. He glanced at his watch, and as she hovered in front of him, it was 1:45. This is urgent, he said fiercely. If that diadem is at Hogwarts, I've got to find it, fast. Hardly the first student to covet the diadem, she said disdainfully. Generations of students have badgered me. This isn't about trying to get better marks, Harry shouted at her. It's about Voldemort, defeating Voldemort. Or aren't you interested in that? She could not blush, but her transparent cheeks became more opaque, and her voice was heated as she replied,
Of course, how dare you suggest...
Well, help me then. Her composure was slipping.
It's not a question of...
She stammered.
My mother's died...
Your mother's? She looked angry with herself.
When I lived,
she said stiffly,
I was Helena Ravenclaw.
You're her daughter. But then you must know what happened to it.
Well, the diadem bestows wisdom,
she said with an obvious effort to pull herself together.
I doubt it would be greatly increase your chances of defeating a wizard who calls himself Lord...
Haven't I just told you I'm not interested in wearing it? Harry said fiercely. There's no time to explain, but if you care about Hogwarts, if you want to see Voldemort finished, you've got to tell me everything you know about the diadem. She remained quite still, floating in midair, staring down at him, and a sense of hopelessness engulfed Harry. Of course, if she had known anything, she would have told Flitwick or Dumbledore, who had surely asked her the same question. He had shaken his head and made to turn away when she spoke in a low voice.
I stole the diadem from my mother.
You did what?
I stole the diadem,
repeated Helena Ravenclaw in a whisper.
I sought to make myself cleverer, more important than my mother. I ran away with it.
He did not know how to... He had managed to gain her confidence, and he did not ask. He simply listened, hard, as she went on.
My mother, they say, never admitted that the diadem was gone, but she pretended that she still had it. She concealed her loss, my dreadful betrayal, even from the other founders of Hogwarts. Then my mother fell ill, fatally ill. In spite of my perfidy, she was desperate to see me one more time. She sent a man who had long loved me, though I spurned his advances to find me. She knew that he would not rest until he had done so.
Harry waited. She drew a deep breath and threw back her head.
He tracked me to the forest where I was hiding. When I refused to return with him, he became violent. The Baron was always a hot-tempered man. Furious at my refusal, jealous of my freedom, he stabbed me.
The Baron, you mean?
The bloody Baron, yes.
Well, I didn't know this about this story. This is a fascinating lore drop. Elizabeth, hello, welcome in. Good night, Roderick. Rest well, my friend. This is vastly different from the movies. That is a fact. This is some Harry Potter lore that I was not familiar with. We're getting an incredible lore drop with this chapter. I understand why Bethany was so excited about it. There's some serious lore in here. All right, where was I? The Grey Lady, and she lifted aside the cloak she wore to reveal a single dark wound in her white chest.
When he saw what he had done, he was overcome with remorse. He took the weapon that had claimed my life and used it to kill himself. All these centuries later, he wears his chains as an act of penance, as he should,
she added bitterly.
And the diadem. It remained where I had hidden it, when I heard the Baron blundering through the forest towards me, concealed inside of a hollow tree.
A hollow tree, repeated Harry. What tree? Where was this?
A forest in Albania. A lonely place, I thought, was far beyond my mother's reach.
Albania, repeated Harry. Sense was emerging miraculously from the confusion, and now he understood why she was telling him what she had denied Dumbledore and Flitwick. You've already told someone this story, haven't you? Another student. She closed her eyes and nodded.
I had no idea he was flattering. He seemed to understand, to sympathize.
Yes, Harry thought. Tom Riddle would certainly have understood Helena Ravenclaw's desire to possess fabulous objects which she had little right. Well, you weren't the first person Riddle wormed things away from, Harry muttered. He could be charming when he wanted. So Voldemort had managed to wheedle the location of the lost diadem out of the Grey Lady. He had travelled to that far-flung forest and retrieved the diadem from the place of hiding, perhaps as soon as he left Hogwarts, before he even started his work at Morgan and Burke's. And wouldn't those secluded Albanian woods have seemed an excellent refuge when, so much later, Voldemort had needed a place to lie low, undisturbed for 10 long years? But the diadem, once it became his precious Horcrux, had not been left in that lowly tree. No, the diadem had been returned secretly to its true home, and Voldemort must have put it there. The night he asked for your job, said Harry, finishing his thought. I beg your pardon. He hid the diadem in the castle the night he asked Dumbledore to let him teach, said Harry. Saying it out loud enabled him to make sense of it all. He must have hidden the diadem on his way up or down from Dumbledore's office. But it was still worth trying to get the job. Then he might have got the chance to nick Gryffindor's sword as well. Thank you. Thanks. Harry left her floating there, looking utterly bewildered. As he rounded the corner, back into the entrance hall, he checked his watch. It was 5 minutes until midnight, and though he now knew what the last Horcrux was, he was no closer to discovering where it was. Generations of students had failed to find the diadem. That suggested that it was not in Ravenclaw Tower. But if not there, where? What hiding place had Tom Riddle discovered inside the castle that he believed would remain secret forever? Lost in desperate speculation, Harry turned a corner, but he had taken only a few steps down the corridor when the window to his left broke, open with a deafening, shattering crash. As he leapt aside, a gigantic body flew through the window and hit the wall opposite. Something large and furry detached itself, whimpering, from the new arrival and flung itself at Harry. Hagrid! Harry bellowed, fighting off Fang the Boarhound's attentions as an enormous bearded figure clambered to his feet. What the? Harry! Your hair! Your hair! Hagrid stooped down, bestowed upon Harry a cursory and rib-cracking hug, then ran back to the shattered window. Good boy, Grumpy! He bellowed through the hole in the window. I'll see you in a moment. There's a good lad. Beyond Hagrid, out in the dark night, Harry saw bursts of light in the distance. He heard a weird, keening scream, and he looked down at his watch. It was midnight. The battle had begun. Timothy Norris, thank you for the heartbeat. Tips to the tavern keeper, always appreciated, my friend. The tavern is my home. Yes, indeed it is, Ashley, whenever you need it. Oh, I had forgotten about the Bloody Baron part. It's in other things I'm excited, and other emotions about hearing again. It's insane. I haven't seen Cap tonight. She's probably not in tonight. I know she still has a lot of family things going on. No, she didn't come in this evening, and because we don't normally get on Monday, she probably won't be in. He's just speaking of the chat Frost. The fact that Matty has been here a third the time and he's doubled her number of chats sent is wild. Because Destiny is not exactly not chatty. She talks to everybody in the chats. So Matty has managed to outdo her by double on Twitch. God knows what it was on Facebook back when that was his sole platform. Alright, let's wet the whistle. Looks like everything is still holding firm, so let's keep going. We're halfway through the pages. We got half to go. Let me check to make sure ads aren't incoming real quick. We got 8 minutes until ads. I'll finish this page and then we'll run ads again so that we're not stuck up. All right. Blimey, Harry! Pounded Hagrid. This is it, eh? Time to fight. Hagrid, where have you come from? Heard you know who from up in our cave? Said Hagrid grimly. voice carried, didn't it? Yeah. Got till midnight to get me Potter. Now you must be here. Now what must be happening? Get down, Fang. So we come to join in, me and Gruppy and Fang. Smashed our way through the boundary by our forest. Gruppy was carrying us, Fang and me. Told him to let me down at the castle. So he shoved me through the window, bless him. Not exactly what I meant, but where's Ron and Hermione? It's a really good question. Come on. They hurried together along the corridor, Fang lolloping beside them. Harry could hear movement through the corridors all around. Running footsteps, shouts through the windows. He could see more flashes of light in the dark grounds. Where are you going? Puffed Hagrid, pounding along at Harry's heel, making the floorboards quick. I don't know exactly, said Harry, making another random turn. But Ron and Hermione must be around here somewhere. The first casualties of the battle were already strewn across the passage ahead. The 2 stone gargoyles that usually guarded the entrance to the staff room had been smashed apart by a jinx and had sailed through another broken window. Their remains stirred feebly on the floor, and as Harry leapt over one of their disembodied heads, it moaned faintly, Don't mind me. I'll just lie here and crumble. His ugly stone face made Harry think suddenly of the marble bust of Rowena Ravenclaw at Xenophilius's house, wearing that mad headdress, and then of the statue in Ravenclaw Tower, with the stone diadem upon her white curls. And as they reached the end of the passageway, the memory of a third stone effigy came back to him. That an ugly old warlock, unto whom Harry had placed a wig and a battered old tiara. The shock shot through Harry with the heat of fire whiskey, and he very nearly stumbled. He knew at last where the Horcrux sat waiting for him. Tom Riddle, who confided in no one and operated alone, might have been arrogant enough to assume that he and only he had penetrated the deepest mysteries of Hogwarts Castle. Of course, Dumbledore and Flitwick, those model pupils, had never set foot in that particular place. But he, Harry, had stayed off the beaten track in his time at school. Here, at last, was a secret he and Voldemort knew, that Dumbledore had never discovered. He was roused by Professor Sprout, who was thundering past, followed by Neville and half a dozen others, all of them wearing earmuffs, carrying what appeared to be large potted plants.
Mandrakes!
Neville bellowed at Harry over his shoulder as he ran.
Going to lob them over the wall. They won't like this.
Harry knew now where to go. He sped off with Hagrid and Fang galloping behind him. They passed portrait after portrait, and the painted figures raced alongside them. Wizards and wishes and ruffs and breeches, in armour and cloaks, cramming themselves into each other's canvases, screaming news from other parts of the castle. As they reached the end of the corridor, the whole castle shook. And Harry knew, as a gigantic vase blew off its plinth with explosive force, that it was in the grip of enchantments more sinister than those of the teachers and the Order. It's all right, Fang, it's all right, yelled Hagrid, but the great boarhound had taken flight as the slivers of china flew like shrapnel through the air, and Hagrid pounded after the terrified dog, leaving Harry alone. He forged on through the trembling passages, his wand at the ready, and for the length of one corridor, the little painted knight, Sir Carrigan, rushed from painting to painting beside him, clanking along in his armour, screaming encouragement, his fat little pony cantering behind him.
Brats! Rogues! Dogs and scoundrels! Drive them out, Harry Potter! See them off!
Harry hurtled around a corner, found Fred and a small knot of students, including Lee Jordan and Hannah Abbott, standing beside another empty plinth, whose statue was concealing a secret passageway. Their wands were drawn, and they were listening at the concealed hole. Nice night for it, Fred shouted as the castle quaked again, and Harry sprinted by, elated and terrified in equal measure. Along yet another corridor he dashed, and then there were owls everywhere, and Mrs. Norris was hissing and trying to bat them with her paws, no doubt to return them to their proper place. Potter! Aberforth Dumbledore stood blocking the corridor ahead, his wand held ready. I've had hundreds of kids thundering through my pub, Potter. I know, we're evacuating, Harry said. Voldemort. Attacking because they haven't handed it over. Haven't you over yet? Said Aberforth. I'm not deaf. Whole of Hogsmeade heard him. And it's never occurred to any of you to keep a few Slytherins hostage. There are kid Death Eaters. You've just sent to safety. Wouldn't it have been a bit smarter to keep them here? It wouldn't stop Voldemort, said Harry, and your brother never would have done it. Aberforth grunted and tore away in the opposite direction. Your brother never would have done it. Well, it was the truth. Harry thought as he ran on again. Dumbledore, who had defended Snape for so long, would have never held students for ransom. And then he skidded around a final corner, and with a yell of mingled relief and a fury he saw them, Ron and Hermione, both with their arms full of large, curved, dirty yellow objects. Ron with a broomstick under his arm. Where the hell have you been? Harry shouted. Chamber of Secrets, said Ron. Chamber... What? Said Harry, coming to an unsteady halt before them. It was Ron's idea, all Ron's idea, said Hermione breathlessly. Wasn't it absolutely brilliant? They were there. There we were, after you left. And I said to Ron, even if we find the other one, how are we going to get rid of it? We still hadn't got rid of the cup. And then he thought of it, the basilisk. What the... Something to get rid of the Horcruxes, said Ron simply. Harry's eyes dropped to the objects clutched in Ron and Hermione's arms. The great curved fangs torn, he now realized, from the skull of the dead basilisk. How did you get in there? He asked, staring at the fangs. From the fangs to Ron. You need to speak Parseltongue. He did, whispered Hermione. Show him, Ron. Ron made a horrible, strangled, hissing noise. It's what you did to open the locket, he told Harry apologetically. I had to have a few goes to get it right, but he shrugged modestly. We got in there in the end. He was amazing, said Hermione. Amazing. So, Harry was struggling to keep up. So we're another Horcrux down, said Ron from under his jacket, where he pulled the mangled remains of Hufflepuff's cup. Hermione stabbed it. I thought she should. She hasn't had the pleasure yet. Genius, yelled Harry. It was nothing, said Ron, though he looked delighted with himself. So, what's new with you? As he said it, there was an explosion from overhead. All three of them looked up as dust fell through the ceiling, and they heard a distant scream. I know what the diadem looks like. I know where it is, said Harry, talking fast. He hid it exactly where I hid my old potions book, where everyone's been hiding stuff for centuries. He thought he was the only one who could find it. Come on, as the walls trembled again. He led the other two back through the concealed entrance and down the staircase into the room of requirement. It was empty except for three women, Ginny, Tonks, and the elderly witch wearing a moth-eaten hat, whom Harry recognised immediately as Neville's grandmother. Ah, Potter, she said crisply, as if she'd been waiting for him. You can tell us what's going on. Is everyone okay? Said Ginny and Tonks together. As far as we know, said Harry. There's still people in the passage. Are there still people in the passage to the Hogshead? He knew that the room would not be able to transform while there were still users inside it. I was the last to come through, said Mrs. Longbottom. I sealed it. I think it unwise to leave it open now that Aberforth has left the pub. Have you seen my grandson? He's fighting, said Harry. Naturally, said the old lady proudly. Excuse me, I must go and assist him. With a surprising speed, she trotted off towards the stone steps. Harry looked at Tonks. I thought you were supposed to be with Teddy at your mother's. I couldn't stand not knowing. Tonks looked anguished. She'll look after him. Have you seen Remus? He was planning to lead a group of fighters into the grounds. Without another word, Tonks sped off. Ginny, said Harry, I'm sorry, but we need you to leave too. Just for a bit, then you can come back in. Oh, ads are starting now. We're gonna have 3 minutes of ads, friends, and then we'll be back in just a moment. Amos, Eliza, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the tavern, my friend. So very glad that you could join us. We're going to have 3 minutes of ads, friends. I apologize. We'll be back just a minute, and then we'll have an hour without them. Thank you for the raving snail. Ashley, appreciate you. Douglas, my friend, I didn't see you drop in, but I'm very glad that you did, and we look forward to seeing you back again. For Storytime, we'll have another chapter read tomorrow evening. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. It was wonderful to have you. Always good to see you in. Always good. All right, we're gonna run ads real quick over on Twitch, friends. 3 minutes and we will be back. I apologize. All right, what all did I miss? Where do we see those stats again? I forgot. There's a little thing underneath the screen on the main page if you're on the computer. Destiny is alive, I can confirm. Let's assume I probably tripled it. Probably. That's alright, Matthew. That's all. Yeah. Twitch tracks all of those things, but you have to have a plugin in order for it to be, like, shown out. That was funny. I didn't know it was going to put it on top of your head. I didn't see it, but I assumed with a name like Raving Snail, it was probably going to do something silly. That's very funny, though. That's all right. That's all right, man. I appreciate you. Thank you kindly. I almost read through it because it's such an exciting part of the story. I was not paying attention, so. No ads on YouTube. It's so delayed on YouTube, it almost does not matter. Yeah, the delay. I don't know why the delay on Facebook and YouTube is so bad, but I've never been able to fix it. I've done everything that I can do on my end to fix it. Nothing I can do fixes it. It's always 20 to 60 seconds behind. But this is crazy. Like, we're getting mad lore drops in this chapter. First of all, the Bloody Baron killing Rowena Ravenclaw's daughter is insane. Also, the fact that now, does anybody know if the Grey Lady is mentioned anywhere before this book? I have no, like, we just read through all of these. I don't ever recall the Grey Lady being mentioned. I cannot remember at any point the Grey Lady being mentioned. Yeah, I mean, I've done everything on. Yeah, I know YouTube intentionally, like, they put that latency in so that they can moderate. I'm stoned, so I'm inelegant. That'll happen. The devil's grass steals your tongue, as they say. No, she isn't, I believe. Yeah, I can't recall in any, because we just read through all of these over the last, year. I can't recall her ever being mentioned. So this little, like, retcon convenient plot device, I'm not a huge fan of that, but it is, well, like, I like the lore drop itself. Like, I like the Bloody Baron. Told you, you did indeed tell me that this was going to be a hell of a chapter, that's true. The Grey Lady was mentioned in the first one, but it was very brief. I'm gonna have to go back and look. Because the fact that if she was mentioned in the first one, that's some really good lore. Whether she intended it to be or not, that's some really good lore, like, working there. If the only time that she's ever mentioned is in passing, and it wasn't intended, that's a great use of things that you just put into the environment. This is what Google says. While she appears silently in earlier books, she is explicitly identified as the Grey Lady in Deathly Hallows. Okay, I'll have to look because I am curious if this was something that was planned from book one or if it's something that didn't come in until way later. Because if it's all the way back in book one, like that's some crazy world building there. The first one I'd imagine. Worked the evening shift tonight. This made my drive home go by really quick. Well, good, Crystal. I'm glad. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I'll have to look up a citation for it, and I'll post it later over in the guild if I can find it. To be honest, since I write as a DM, I want to say she was flying by the seat of her pants. Well, and Rowling has passively admitted this quite a few times in the past, that a lot of the stuff she came up with, she didn't actually come up with until way later in the book writing process. So, you know, it's a lot of I don't remember what it is. I think it's called like pantsers versus plotters or something. She made up a lot of this as she went along. She borrowed things here and there from like Slavic and Scandinavian and Brittonic mythologies, and then a lot of the world building she did sort of on the fly, and she was pretty good at it, so it ended up working out. She's given a name here, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, even if she just passively mentions it like another ghost and then uses that ghost as a way of like, you know, fleshing out this later decided plot point, it's still a pretty good way of utilizing things that you've already put into your story. Taking the ambience of the world that you've already put into your story and utilizing it is a pretty good usage. Alright, it looks like our ads are done over on the Twitch portal, so we'll get back into the story here. Ginny looked simply delighted to leave her sanctuary. And then you can come back in, he shouted after her as she ran up the steps after Tonks. You've got to come back in. Hang on a minute, said Ron sharply. We've forgotten someone. Who? Asked Hermione. The house elves. They'll all be down in the kitchen, won't they? You mean we ought to get them fighting? Asked Harry. No, said Ron seriously. I mean, we should tell them all to get out. We don't want any more dobbies, do we? We can't order them to die for us. There was a clatter as the basilisk fangs cascaded out of Hermione's arms. Running at Ron, she flung them around his neck and kissed him full on the mouth. Ron threw away the fangs and the brooms. He had not a smart idea to, like, jump at each other. To jump at each other while holding, like, the deadliest poison, venom known to man, right? And the broomstick he was holding and responded with such enthusiasm that he lifted Hermione off her feet. Is this the moment? Harry asked weakly, and when nothing happened except that Ron and Hermione gripped each other still more firmly and swayed on the spot, he raised his voice. Oi! There's a war going on here! Ron and Hermione broke apart, their arms still around each other. I know, mate, said Ron, who looked as though he'd recently been hit in the back of the head with a bludger. So it's now or never, isn't it? Never mind that. What about the Horcrux? Harry shouted. Do you think you could just hold it in until we've got the diadem? Yeah, right. Sorry, said Ron, and he and Hermione set about gathering up the fangs, both pink in the face. It was clear, as the three of them stepped back out into the corridors upstairs, that in minutes they had spent in the room of requirement, the situation within the castle had deteriorated severely. The walls and ceiling were shaking worse than ever, Dust filled the air, and through the nearest window Harry saw bursts of green and red light, so close to the foot of the castle that he knew the Death Eaters must be very near entering the place. Looking down, Harry saw Grop, the giant meandering past, swinging what looked like stone gargoyles torn from the roof and sorry and roaring from into his displeasure. Let's just hope he steps on some of them, said Ron, as more screams echoed from close by. As long as it's not any of our lot, said Harry, said a voice. Oh. As long as it's not any of our lot, said a voice, and Harry turned and saw Ginny and Tonks, both with their wands drawn at the next window, which was missing several panes. Even as he watched, Ginny sent a well-aimed jinx into a crowd of fighters below. Good girl, roared a figure running through the dust towards them, and Harry saw Aberforth again, his grey hair flying as he led a small group of students past. They look like they might be breaching the northern battlements. They brought giants of their own. Have you seen Remus? Tonks called after him. He was dueling Dolahov, shouted Aberforth. Haven't seen him since. Tonks, said Ginny. Tonks, I'm sure he's okay. But Tonks had run off into the dust after Aberforth. Ginny turned, helpless, to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They'll be all right, said Harry, though he knew they were empty words. Ginny, we'll be back in a moment. Just keep out of the way, keep safe. Come on, he said to Ron and Hermione, and they ran back to the stretch of wall beyond which the room of requirements was waiting to do the bidding of the next entrance. I need a place where everything is hidden. Harry begged of it inside of his head, and the door materialized on their third run past. The furor of the battle died the moment they crossed the threshold and closed the door behind them. All was silent. They were in a place the size of a cathedral with the appearance of a city, its towering walls built of objects hidden by thousands of long-gone students. And they never realized anyone could get in, said Ron, his voice echoing in the silence. He thought he was the only one, said Harry. Too bad for him. I've had the hard stuff in my time. Just a second, friends. This way, he added. I think it's down here. He passed the stuffed troll in the vanishing cabinet Draco Malfoy had mended last year with such disastrous consequences. Then hesitated, looking up and down the aisles of junk. He could not remember where to go next. Accio diadem, cried Hermione in desperation, but nothing flew through the air toward them. It seemed that, like the vault at Gringotts, the room would not yield its hidden objects so easily. Let's split up, Harry told the other two. Look for a stone bust of an old man wearing a wig and a tiara. It's standing on a cupboard, and it's definitely somewhere near here. They sped off up adjacent aisles. Harry could hear the others' footsteps echoing through the towering piles of junk, of bottles, hats, crates, chairs, books, weapons, broomsticks, and bats. Somewhere near here, Harry muttered to himself. Somewhere. Deeper and deeper into the labyrinth he went, looking for objects he recognized from one of his previous trips into the room. His breath was loud in his ears, and then his very soul seemed to shiver. It was, right ahead, the blistering old cupboard in which he had hidden his old potions book, and on the top of it, the pockmarked stone warlock wearing a dusty old wig that looked like an ancient, discoloured tiara. He had already stretched out his hands, though he remained 10 feet away when the voice behind him said, "Hold it, Potter!" He skidded to a halt and turned around. Crabbe and Goyle were standing behind him, shoulder to shoulder. Wands pointed right at Harry. Through a small space between their jeering faces, he saw Draco Malfoy. "That's my wand you're holding, Potter," said Malfoy, pointing his own through the gap between Crabbe and Goyle. "Not anymore," panted Harry, tightening his grip on the hawthorn wand. "Winners keepers, Malfoy. Who's lent you theirs?" "My mother," said Draco. Harry laughed, though there was nothing very humorous about the situation. He could hear Ron or Hermione. He couldn't hear Ron or Hermione anymore. They seemed to have run out of earshot, searching for the diadem. "So how come you three aren't with Voldemort?" Harry asked. We're going to be rewarded," said Crabbe. His voice was surprisingly soft for such an enormous person. Harry had hardly ever heard him. Hang on. This music is not exactly appropriate for the situation that we're in. Mason the Fourth. I've been starting blacksmithing and I'm trying to make a warhammer. What are any tips? Well, I'm no professional blacksmith. But it depends on what kind of warhammer you're making. If you're making a proper warhammer, then the idea is that you want well-tempered but hardened steel, and you'll have the head, and then of course the curved spike for breaking through armor. But I guess it depends on what kind of warhammer you're trying to make. Pretty sure Trip is trying to kick us out of our room to stole the bed with as many. Oh, Death by Snoozer, you guys are ridiculous. So real medieval warhammers will have. You want to make sure you use good steel, and obviously you'd want to do that for anything. But for warhammers, they're typical. What are they called? I can't remember what they're called off the top of my head. Hang on, let me look. The Beck de Corbin. You want to make yourself a Beck. Look up Becks and pick your favorite model, and Beck de Corbin means Raven's Beak. So find a Beck de Corbin style that you like, and then make it to the best of your ability. That would be my recommendation. All right. Back into story time. Welcome in, Mason. I'm glad you've joined us. We're going to be done with story time here in probably about 15, maybe 20 minutes. All right. Harry had hardly ever heard him speak before. Crabbe was smiling like a small child promised a large bag of sweets. "We hung back, Potter. We decided not to go. Decided to bring you to him." "Good plan," said Harry in mock admiration. He could not believe that he was this close and was going to be thwarted by Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. He began edging slowly backward toward the place where the Horcrux sat lopsided upon the bust. If he could get his hands on it before the fight broke out. "So how did you get in here?" he asked, trying to distract them. "I virtually lived in the room of hidden things all last year," said Malfoy, his voice a little brittle. "I know how to get in." Alright, that's another not. Okay, we're gonna start this playlist over because it's just getting weird now. Hannah, I'm glad you're still awake. I hope you're enjoying yourself. "We was hiding in the corridor outside," grunted Goyle. "We can do disillusion charms now," he said. His face split into a gormless grin. "You turned up right in front of us and said you was looking for a diadem. What's a diadem?" "Harry, Ron's voice echoed suddenly from the other side of the wall to Harry's right. Are you talking to someone? With a whip-like movement, Crabbe pointed his wand at the 50-foot mountain of old furniture and broken trunks, of old books and robes and unidentifiable junk, and shouted, "Descend down!" And the wall began to totter, and then the top third crumbled into the aisle next to where Ron stood. "Ron!" Harry bellowed as somewhere out of sight Hermione screamed, and Harry heard innumerable objects crashing to the floor on the other side of the destabilized wall. He pointed his wand at the rampart and cried, "Finite!" And it steadied. "No!" shouted Malfoy, staying Crabbe's arm as the latter made to repeat his spell. "If you wreck the room, you might bury this diadem thing." "What's that matter?" said Crabbe, tugging himself free. "It's Potter the Dark Lord wants. Who cares about the diadem?" "Potter came in here to get it," said Malfoy with ill-disguised impatience at the slow-wittedness of his colleagues. "So that must mean—" "Must mean?" Crabbe muttered to Malfoy. Crabbe turned on Malfoy in undisguised ferocity. "Who cares what you think? I don't take your orders no more, Draco. You and your dad are finished." "Harry!" shouted Ron again from the other side of the junk wall. "What's going on?" "Harry!" mimicked Crabbe. "What's going on?" "No, Potter!" "Crucio!" Harry had lunged for the tiara, and Crabbe's curse missed him but hit the stone bust, which flew into the air, and the diadem soared upward and then dropped in the mass of objects on which the bust had rested. "Stop!" shouted Malfoy at Crabbe, his voice echoing through the enormous room. "The Dark Lord wants him alive." "So? I'm not trying to kill him, am I?" yelled Crabbe, throwing off Malfoy's restraining arm. "But if I can, I will. The Dark Lord wants him dead anyways. What's the difference?" A jet of scarlet light shot past Harry by inches. Hermione had run around the corner behind him and sent a stunning spell straight at Crabbe's head. It only missed because Malfoy had pulled him out of the way. "It's the mudblood! Avada Kedavra!" Harry saw Hermione dive aside, and his fury the Crabbe aimed to kill wiped all else from his mind. And he shot a stunning spell at Crabbe, who lurched out of the way, knocking Malfoy's wand out of his hand. It rolled out of sight beneath the mountain of broken furniture and boxes. "Don't kill him! Don't kill him!" Malfoy yelled at Crabbe and Goyle, who were both aiming at Harry. Their split-second hesitation was all Harry needed. "Expelliarmus!" Goyle's wand flew out of his hand and disappeared into the bulwark of objects beside him. Goyle leapt foolishly on the spot, trying to retrieve it, and Malfoy jumped out of the range of Hermione's second stunning spell. And Ron, appearing suddenly at the end of the aisle, shot a full-body binding curse at Crabbe, which narrowly missed. Crabbe wheeled around and screamed, "Avada Kedavra!" again, and Ron leapt out of sight to avoid the jet of green light. The wandless Malfoy cowered behind the three-legged wardrobe as Hermione charged toward him, hitting Goyle with a stunning spell as she came. "It's somewhere here," Harry yelled at her, pointing at the pile of junk onto which the old tiara had fallen. "Look for it while I go help Ron." "Harry!" she screamed. A roaring, billowing noise came from behind him. At a moment's warning, he turned and saw both Ron and Crabbe running as hard as they could up the aisle toward him. "Like it hot, scum!" roared Crabbe as he ran, but he seemed to have no control over what he had done. Flames of abnormal size were pursuing them, licking up the sides of the junk bulwarks, which were crumbled into soot at their touch. "Augmenti!" Harry bawled, but the jet of water that soared from the tip of the wand evaporated in the air. "Run!" Malfoy grabbed the stunned Goyle and dragged him along. Crabbe outstripped all of them, now looking terrified. Harry, Ron, and Hermione pelted along in his wake, and the fire pursued them. It was not normal fire. Crabbe had used a curse of which Harry had no knowledge, and as they turned the corner, the flames chased them as though they were alive, sentient, intent upon killing them. Now the fire was mutating, forming giant pack of fiery beasts, flaming serpents, chimeras, and dragons, rose and fell, rose again, and the detritus of centuries on which they were feeding was thrown up into the air, into their fanged mouths, tossed high onto clawed feet, before being consumed by the inferno. Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle had vanished from view. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stopped dead. The fiery monsters were circling them, drawing closer and closer. Claws and horns and tails lashed, and the heat was solid as a wall around them. "What can we do?" Hermione screamed over the deafening roars of the fire. "What can we do?" "Here!" Harry seized a pair of heavy-looking brooms from the nearest pile of junk, threw one to Ron, and pulled Hermione onto it behind him. Harry swung his leg over the second broom, and, with hard kicks to the ground, they soared up into the air, missing by feet the horned beak of a flaming raptor that snapped its jaws at them, the smoke and heat becoming overwhelming. Below them, the cursed fire was consuming the contraband of generations of hunted students, the guilty outcomes of thousands of banned experiments, the secrets of countless souls who had sought refuge in the room. Harry could not see a trace of Malfoy, Crabbe, or Goyle anywhere. He swooped as low as he dared over the marauding monsters of flame to try and find them, but there was nothing but fire. What a terrible way to die. He had never wanted this. "Hurry! Let's get out! Let's get out!" bellowed Ron, though it was impossible to see where the door was through all the black smoke. Then Harry heard a thin, piteous human scream from amidst the terrible commotion. The thunder of devouring flame. "It's too dangerous!" Ron yelled, but Harry wheeled in the air, his glasses giving his eyes some small protection from the smoke. He raked the firestorm below, seeking a sign of life, a limb or a face that was not yet charred like wood. And he saw them. Malfoy with his arms around the unconscious Goyle, the pair of them perched on a fragile tower of charred desks. Harry dived, and Malfoy saw him coming and raised one good arm. Even as Harry grasped it, he knew at once it was no good. Goyle was too heavy, and Malfoy's hand was covered in sweat, and he slid instantly out of Harry's. "If we die for him, I'll kill you, Harry!" roared Ron's voice, and as a great flaming chimera bore down upon them, he and Hermione dragged Goyle onto their broom and rose, rolling and pitching into the air. Once more Malfoy clambered up behind Harry. "The door! The door! The door!" screamed Malfoy in Harry's ear, and Harry sped up, following Ron, Hermione, and Goyle through the billowing black smoke, hardly able to breathe, and all around them the last few objects unburned by devouring flames were flung into the air, and the creatures of the cursed fire cast them high in celebration, cups and shields, a sparkling necklace, and an old discoloured tiara. "What are you doing? What are you doing? The door's that way!" screamed Malfoy, but Harry made a hairpin swerve and dived. The diadem seemed to fall in slow motion, turning and glittering as it dropped toward the maw of a yawning serpent, and then he had it. Caught it around his wrist. Harry swerved again as the serpent lunged at him, and he soared upward straight toward the place where he prayed. The door stood open. Ron, Hermione, and Goyle had vanished. Malfoy was screaming and holding Harry so tightly it hurt. Then, through the smoke, Harry saw a rectangular patch on the wall and steered the broom to it. Moments later, clean air filled his lungs, and they collided with the wall in the corridor beyond. Malfoy fell off the broom and lay face down, gasping, coughing, and retching. Harry rolled over and sat up. The door to the room of requirements had vanished. Ron and Hermione sat panting on the floor, beside Goyle, who was still unconscious. "Crabbe," choked Malfoy as soon as he could speak. "Crabbe." "He's dead," said Ron harshly. There was silence, apart from the panting and coughing. Then a number of huge bangs shook the castle, and a great cavalcade of transparent figures galloped past on horse, their heads screaming with bloodlust under their arms. Harry staggered to his feet when the headless hunt, had passed and looked around. The battle was still going on all around him. He could hear more screams than those of the retreating ghosts. Panic flared in him. "Where's Jenny?" he said sharply. "She was here. She was supposed to be here. Going back into the room of requirement." "Blimey. Do you reckon it'll still work after that fire?" asked Ron, but he too got to his feet, rubbing his chest and looking left and right. "Shall we split up and look?" "No," said Hermione, getting to her feet too. Malfoy and Goyle remained slumped helplessly on the corridor floor. Neither of them had wands. "Let's stick together. I say we go. Harry, what's on your arm?" "What? Oh, yeah." He pulled the diadem from his wrist and held it up. It was hot, blackened with soot, but as he looked, it was at it closely. He was just able to make out the tiny words etched upon it. "Wit beyond measure is man's greatest treasure." The blood-like substance and dark and toddy seemed to be leaking from the diadem. Suddenly, Harry felt the thing vibrate violently, then break apart in his hands. As it did so, he thought he heard the faintest, most distant scream of pain, echoing not from the grounds or the castle, but from the thing that had just fragmented in his fingers. "It must have been fiend fire," whispered Hermione, her eyes on broken pieces. "Sorry?" "Fiend fire. Cursed fire. It's one of the only substances that destroys Horcruxes. But I would never, ever have dared use it. It's so dangerous. How did Crabbe know how to—" "Must have learned it from the Carrows," said Harry grimly. "Shame he wasn't concentrating when they mentioned on how to stop it, really," said Harry, whose hair, like Hermione's, was singed and whose face was blackened. "If he hadn't tried to kill us all, I'd be quite sorry he was dead." "But don't you realise," whispered Hermione, "this means if we can just get the snake—" She broke off as yells of shouts and unmistakable noises of duels filled the corridor. Harry looked around, and his heart seemed to fail. Death Eaters had penetrated Hogwarts. Fred and Percy had just backed into view, both of them dueling masked hooded men. Ron, Harry, and Hermione ran forward to help. Jets of light flew in every direction, and the man dueling Percy backed off fast. Then his hood slipped, and they saw his high forehead, streaked hair. "Hello, Minister," bellowed Percy, sending a neat jinx straight at Thickness, who dropped his wand and clawed at the front of his robes, apparently in awful discomfort. Did I forget to mention, I resign." "You're joking, Perce," said Fred as the Death Eater he was battling collapsed under the weight of 3 separate stunning spells. Thickness had fallen to the ground with tiny spikes erupting all over him. He seemed to be turning into some form of sea urchin. Fred looked at Percy with glee. "You actually are joking, Perce. I don't think I've heard you joke since you were—" Then the air exploded. They had been grouped together, Harry, Ron, Hermione, Fred, and Percy, 2 Death Eaters at their feet, one stunned and the other transfigured. And in that fragment of a moment, when danger seemed temporarily at bay, the world was rent apart. Harry felt himself flying through the air, and all he could do was hold tightly as possible to that thin stick of wood that was his one and only weapon, and shield his head with his arms. He heard the screams and yells of his companions without hope of knowing what had happened to them, and then the world resolved itself into pain and semi-darkness. He was half buried in the wreckage of a corridor that had been subjected to a terrible attack. The cold air told him that the side of the castle had been blown away, and hot stickiness on his cheek told him that he was bleeding copiously. Then he heard a terrible cry that pulled at his insides, that expressed agony of a kind neither flame nor curse could cause, and he stood up, swaying, more frightened than he had been that day, more frightened perhaps than he had been in his life. Hermione was struggling to her feet in the wreckage. The 3 red-headed men were grouped on the ground where the wall had blasted apart. Harry grabbed Hermione's hand as they staggered and stumbled over the stone and wood. "No, no, no!" someone was shouting. "No, Fred, no!" And Percy was shaking his brother, and Ron was kneeling beside them, and Fred's eyes stared without seeing. The ghost of his last laugh still etched upon his face. What a way to end a chapter, my friends! Good Lord! That is some of the best prose writing I think I've ever seen Rowling do. What an end to a chapter! Oh my Lord! Book intense, music comedy. Yeah, the music wasn't well paired. Dr. Susan, hello, it's good to see you. Welcome in. The movies do this well, but to be honest, the deaths mean a lot more in the books. Yeah, that was a hell of a chapter. What a way to end. Brought right into the thick of it. Danny Alice, idiocracies, how dare you, good sir. Look, we all have them. I've had my fair share of idiocies, my friend. Holy hell, the time has come for me to dip out. Thanks for the story, Castle. Rest well, tell well. Good night, Frost. I will be on earlier tomorrow, I promise, so that we can, because we're doing, I think, 2 or 3 chapters tomorrow. So it's gonna be a hell of a thing. Love it tonight. I'm glad you were able to come and visit us, Dr. Susan. Always lovely to see you. Hope things are well for you. Lovely chapter. I'm glad you enjoyed, Hannah. Oh. All right, my friends. Right, Crystal. Holy hell, what a way to end. Good form, good form. I do my best. Earlier, Castle. I should assume that's 3 past Dragon Hour. No, hopefully I should be on before 5 tomorrow. The lady will be back. The lady wasn't feeling well the last couple of days, so I had to do the shooting, the writing, and the editing for Storytimes. She'll be back on editing tonight or tomorrow, I think. So I won't be as caught up in everything. And we should be back on. Thanks for the great evening, sending my love. Always, always, always. Fred Hearts, my heart. I know, it's so sad. James Crawford, thank you for the follow over on TikTok. So very glad you could join us. You mark the tavern on your map, you should be able to find your way back the next time you seek a story. Is it any wonder it only took me 11 days to read this book in 8th or whatever grade? It is not. It is not. She did do... I still think there's a little bit too much torturing of characters, but this is particularly well put together, especially near the end. The early part tends to pramble a lot, but I'd say past chapter 20, it does a pretty good job of getting the story out, and she's done a little bit less of the torturing of characters, so I like that a lot. Yeah, and that lore drop on the Bloody Baron and the Grey Lady. Whoa, what a drop that was! There was so much that we're told in this chapter. Okay, friends. So just real quick for everybody, if you're in the guild, well, hang on, I might as well bring this up because I'm gonna be sending folk over there. Might as well have it on. But always makes me cry, poor Fred. It's incredibly sad. Very, very well done. Poor Fred. Yeah, because the twins are some of my favourite characters. I love the twins. I felt like the Weasley twins were some of the best written, most well together characters in the books in general. I really like Fred and George a lot. It's hard to write an archetype well. And she did a very good job with Fred and George. Okay, we're gonna grab this. So, immediately after we're done here, I'd say in 10 minutes, we are going to be doing a movie night over in the guild. We're going to be watching the second Harry Potter film. We're going to be watching every single Harry Potter film this week because we're finishing up. This is the end. We're finishing up book 7. So this week, we're also, every night this week, we're going to watch a Harry Potter movie together. If you want to join over in the Discord, we'll be doing that. Sinome, hello, good to see you. So if you are not yet in the guild, the Discord link is there. Everyone has a part, some shit, some lit. Fair enough. If you are not in the guild, the Discord link is there, my friends. So yes, at 9:30 Pacific Standard Time, so it's 8 minutes from now, we'll be doing a movie over in the guild. I want to thank you all for joining me tonight. I hate to read and run. If you are over on Twitch and you'd like to be a part of the raid, we're going to raid out and share the love, but we're also going to be going over and doing a movie, so I know many of you are going to want to do that. Just be editing and writing for another. No, that's all right. The movies are sort of relaxed. We just sort of sit here, and anybody who wants to chit chat during, there's a chat that you can. I'll be in there passively because I'll be doing work as well. Do we have friends who are on? You said Quincy is on. We can go raid Quincy. He's a lovely gent. We'll go raid him. Yeah, because I'm not normally on Mondays, so I don't know who all is on. Yeah, we'll go say hello to Quincy of Quincy's Tavern. He and I are becoming fast friends. See you for the movie. Thank you, Bear. Thank you to all our tavern keepers. Thank you to everybody, all of our barkeeps. Thank you for the raving snail, Ashley. That was very funny. Okay, so thank you to all of our barkeeps for keeping us well and done. And to everybody else, thank you for joining me tonight. We will be back tomorrow for chapter 32, The Elder Wand. And then we will be back again on Thursday. Thursday will be the day we likely finish up. If not, it will be this Sunday. So, thank you all for being here. I would love to join the movie. But yeah, no, I know for many of you it's very late. All of you, well, the movie will be earlier tomorrow. So we'll be watching the third one, which is most people's favorite. We'll be watching the third movie tomorrow night. We'll be doing another one on Wednesday, another one on Thursday, another one on Friday. All the way up until next Sunday, we'll be doing Harry Potter movies every night this week over at the Guild. So, my friends, that is all for this evening. I thank you all for joining me this fine night. Thank you all for being here. You are all absolutely lovely and wonderful. I appreciate all that you do for the tavern, and it is our pleasure to be your guys' storytellers. And while it is sad that we must part, we will join again the next time that you all seek a story, be that during the daily story times, or during these ones where I actually get to speak to you. Any which way, my friends. Until then, I will bid you all stay bloodthirsty, and I will see you next time. Good night, my friends. Rest well. That's all right, Bethany. Don't worry about it. I see you. I see you. Always a pleasure, my friends. Always a pleasure.
Produce food. I know there's a lot to ask, so Mayor Theo and I have decided to waive your taxes. My tax income. No more will you have to pay tax on your land, purchases, or even sales. Honestly, great, Percy. That's a great idea. Black Dragon Tavern Gaming, welcome and good to see you. Hope you had a good reading or writing stream, telling stories and vibing. Welcome in, welcome in. Raid. Welcome back.